So we're back with the Seagull engine here, and I've had a little look about this gearbox here, and I think I've figured out how it works. So obviously this is the Century with the clutch, and I've disconnected the clutch rod here just to aid disassembly. But I was a bit confused as to how this clutch works. There's a neutral and just a direct drive. So we've got a 12 gear pinion inside there and a 48 tooth gear here. And there's a dog clutch inside of here and the matching dog on here. Now it is spring loaded, so obviously this will be sitting, this 48 tooth will be sitting on the pinion, and then as this gear rod, which is coming through here, down here, is actuated, it basically just compresses this drive rod, pushing back the dog clutch, engaging, because this 48 tooth is always turning with the 12 tooth, and when the gear's selected or the clutch is engaged, it basically just pushes the dog clutch, which is attached to the drive shaft here, the prop shaft, onto and meshes with this 48 and 12, because there's a 12 to 48 reduction, or a 1 to 4. So I've pretty much sussed out how that works. Coming up to the top here, like I say, I've disconnected the clutch arm. I've taken out this bottom bolt, and this top one here, it was coming out and then it just sheared. This is like an Allen key head. That one sheared off. This one, managed to get this one out, quite surprised. So I'm pretty sure now, with those two out, that disconnected, I should just be able to tap out the gearbox from this joint here. I'm not sure whether this clamp has anything to do with it. I don't think it does. I think that just holds this this tube here with the drive shaft in it. But we'll give it a go and see what happens. I'm just curious to see what's happened in here. So we'll have a go at that now. In the beginning I was curious as to being able to salvage this engine and get it back to running condition, but after having a look at it, and depending on the damage here, I don't think it's going to be, not that it's not repairable, I don't think it's going to be financially viable to repair it, because you can pick these up for 60, 100 quid in running condition, and if it needs extra parts, we don't know what it needs yet, I think it's going to cost more than the price of a new one. But what I'll do is I'll strip it down for parts, because the upper section here, the power head, fuel tank, carburetor, possibly the gearbox, the prop and everything, this bracket, that's all salvageable. So I think I'll strip it for parts, and hopefully if someone needs parts for it, they can utilise them, because I don't think this one's going to be financially viable to salvage. So here we are, with some persuasion, managed to get a split in the casing here. Because the headed came off, what I've used is I've just used a drift. I managed to just get it in there, dead blow hammer, and just start tapping it. And it is starting to come. I just put some wedges in just to keep the gap open, because it is pretty well corroded in there and bonds on quite tight. But a couple more taps and I think this will just slide back enough so we can see what's going on. Okay, so I've got it out. Let's see if we can jiggle it. So here it comes. There's the selector rod. That's just going to go up to a 90-degree turn there. And that's it out. So yeah, it took some doing. As you can see inside there's the water impeller. That's your drive shaft, the water passageways, and the exhaust on this side here. There's a bit of corrosion on there, but what we're interested in is that gearbox and why it's not connecting. So we'll take a look at that now. Okay, so this is the gearbox removed. I've taken the gasket off, and you can see inside there. Now you can see the drive inside, and I think what's happened is, because if you look on this end, this is the drive shaft itself. It's quite square, but it's also quite rounded inside, and I believe this gearbox end slides inside of the drive shaft, and that looks quite rounded as well. And I think what's happened is water's got in here, because it was just full of water inside the gearbox, and this pinion was pretty much seized, and I think what's happened is it's been stored in water because the gearbox is the outer casing's got barnacles and all sorts on, so I think it's been stored, like we first thought, in water for so long. All the gear oil's come out, seawater's got in, it's corroded, or it's seized this pinion gear here. Someone's came to start it, and because of the corrosion that's already occurred, because it's sitting in the seawater, I think it's just span over the top of this pinion, because this was already solid, and it's just rounded out inside of there and the drive shaft. So I think that's our failure point for the engine. Now, whether it's worth repairing it, I don't think it is. Like I said before, financially, it's the effort, the cost, it's not worth it. So I think I'll just strip this down for parts. Like I said, I didn't pay much for this engine, probably because of the state of it. But yeah, I think I'm gonna strip it down. You know, you got the fuel tank, the carburetor there, but at least now we know the reason for the failure was the connection joint between here and here. So I don't know if many of you know this, but you can just withdraw the drive shaft on these. There's nothing holding it in. We can see the impeller here, not like a normal outboard. This is a fixed, like a centrifugal pump. So these vanes are solid. It seems to be made out of metal or something like that. Looks like metal. Now I did have a thought. Now this tube is, apart from the impeller, which is drilled and held on with a split pin. Now I don't know whether I could, if I say took that off, put it in this way, I don't know what the connection is at the power head, or whether it's even worth trying it, because we'll still round it off in there. Let me know if you can do that. I don't know if you can. I don't see why you couldn't. If you just measured the distance there and then drilled, I suppose you could flip it one for one. But in our case, I think because we've got damage on the pinion gear sort of assembly inside of here, I don't think it's worth doing it. I think we'll just go through a lot of time and effort to find out that it's still worn and it still won't turn. I mean, it's still really stiff to turn anyway. So I'm quite happy that we've found the root cause of the issue on this Century Seagull engine. I still want to try and get it running. I know it's not salvageable. I just want to see the engine actually run. So I've got a few bits for the carb, a few seals. This the float bowl gasket and the bottom drain here, and the input banjo bolt there. I've got some seals. This has been leaking again. I know we did a temporary fix, but I've got a new cork for it. Yeah, parts for this aren't expensive at all. And what we'll do, I'll put the drive shaft back in, shove it all back up there, and we'll just give it a run. I might not even bother, because cooling, I'm not bothered about it. I just want to see the engine start and then call it a day. So I've got it back on the stand now. What I've done is I've just taken off this lower, sort of the drain of the carburetor bowl. It holds the carburetor bowl on. So we'll just take that off that nut. And there's the washer there. So we'll change that washer out. And we'll just drop the bowl as well. We've got the float in there. It's a brass float. And I've got a new gasket that goes on the top which seals the bowl. So we'll just change that as well at the same time. So we've got it in the water now. I know it hasn't got a water pump on it, but it's still got an exhaust. So we're just going to muffle the exhaust with the water here. I changed the float bowl gasket and the lower gasket there. There is a bit of a leak on the fuel, not on the tap now, but there's a small hole in the bowl around this side. I think it's so if it floods. So obviously the float and needle's not sitting properly. We've got like a jiggler here or a primer, but because it's leaking, I know there's fuel in the bowl, so we've got fuel, and we're just going to give it a spin and just see what happens. I'm not bothered if anything happens or not. It is what it is. So we'll give it a go. So we'll put some rope around it. I've not actually tried this myself, so we'll just take a few turns around here. We'll just give it a spin. There we go. So there we go. It obviously does work. The throttle, not so much. So to stop it, literally just put your hand over the intake there. But it does run. It sounds quite nice. Obviously there's a issue with the carburetor throttle. You know, it is an old engine. But as a backup, if in its day, I imagine it pushed the boat along quite nicely. But yeah, there's a Seagull Century for you. So that was the video there of finding out what's wrong with an old Seagull Century with the clutch. Obviously we got it not knowing anything about the engine, and we've concluded that the drive shaft to sort of pinion gear drive is done for. It's not really worth saving the engine. I mean, I'll strip it for parts because it's a shame to throw an engine out which is running. But I hope you've enjoyed that video. I was hoping to salvage the engine and get it working on a small boat, but these things happen. So if you've enjoyed it, please give a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and stay tuned for more videos. Thank you.